the Electoral Act 2022 being discussed at the plenary in Abuja, and now we're being joined by our correspondent Sagir Ibrahim, who is on standby to give us an update on the outcome of today's plenary. Sagir, good afternoon. What are the key amendments that have been proposed, and how could they, affect the credibility of future elections?
Good afternoon, Queen. It's good to mention, first of all, that the National Assembly, the Senate, is currently in a closed session. And of course, this was announced yesterday, being Wednesday, because deliberations upon this bill, the report submitted by the Committee on Electoral Matters, was not pondered upon, it was not deliberated upon by the senators, firstly because the chairman of the Committee on Electoral Matters was not present, but secondly because copies of the electoral and the committee report was shared with members of the Senate so as to take home, read and digest before, they deliberate upon this bill. Of course, key issues upon it has to do with consent around electoral integrity and, of course, building upon the successes of the last elections and, of course, strengthening some of the mishaps that happened, in the last election to ensure that they do not repeat themselves, in the future election, particularly the 2027 election. Of course, at the moment, the House of Representatives has passed its own. What they're waiting for right now is for the Senate to do that, and then harmonization comes in, and of course, the bill is then forwarded to the presidency for final assent and, of course, for final passage. So at the moment, it's been a waiting game. The Senate is still in this executive session. The doors are closed. Only senators are in the chambers, and they are doing the deliberation as we speak. After that deliberation is done, we're expecting that a clause-by-clause review of the report by this committee will be done, and maybe, hopefully, we'll see the bill pass for third reading today. That's right. The development at the moment with regard to the electoral amendment.
Okay. So again, before they went into the closed session, did the Senate talk about how they plan to reassure Nigerians about, transparency for the 2027 polls before they went on closed session?
Oh, yes, indeed, Queen. So the president of the Senate, in fact, during January yesterday, had mentioned that it is very important for lawmakers to digest, to ingest the words and the content of the report by the committee, because the election is not a joking matter. The election is one that Nigerians are supposed to hold closely, to their chest. And because of that, it is expected that lawmakers will do the needful, read the content of this bill, come back with an expectation to deliberate thoroughly on it. This is why they are in a closed-door session. And expectation is whatever is going to be the result of this closed-door session and of this passage is one that truly reflects the yearnings and the needs of Nigeria, especially as it relates to the integrity of Nigeria's election. For a long time, we've had concerns, about be it voter turnout, about credibility of election, about trust of the electoral umpire, and even trust of the electoral process itself. One is expecting that when this is passed, when this clause-by-clause review is done and this bill is finally passed, harmonized, and then sent to the presidency for assent, it will be one that, meets this much-needed yearnings of Nigerians and, of course, produce an election that all and sundry will accept to be free, fair, credible, and transparent.
Right. So again, now let's talk about the railway. What exactly did they say prompted the Senate to set up an ad hoc investigative committee? Is it because now they've realized that, the railway that they built was a bad infrastructure?
Well, it's a multiplicity of factors, actually. So this came following the points of order raised by Bauchi lawmaker, particularly about the Kano-Kaduna rail line. He raised a couple of issues, and I'll read some of them to you. So it's, first of all, service collapse. It used to be a couple of trips in a day, but now he says, services has been reduced to just one trip a day. He talked about logistical delays. So this rail line is strategic because it is used by traders who transport goods and services, from one point to another. Of course, it's not the Abuja-Kaduna train and like most individuals know, but the Kano-Kaduna rail line, this is different from the Abuja-Kaduna rail line, of course. So he is saying that for a very long time, there's been somewhat of delay in logistics, which used to be just incremental delays, but right now delay time has almost doubled. Not to talk about the infrastructural delay, infrastructure decay. Talking about infrastructure, talking about facilities, talking about the rail equipment being decayed and for a very long time not being maintained. These are some of the issues he raised. Of course, insecurity being one of the factors. Some of these rail lines, run into thick forest, most of which is unmanned and unguarded. And because of this, there has been concern that vandals will stand by, if not vandalizing these rail tracks, but of course, are vandalizing the trains themselves, cutting away with goods of individuals who, of course, intend to just transport their goods from one point to another, and then having to incur these losses because of this insecurity. And then we also add the factor, of course, of insecurity on the point that individuals do not seem to be safe because of the fact that you're transporting this content, these goods, these services, you're transporting yourself from one point to another point, and then you still risk being abducted by non-state actors while in the process of transporting goods, services, and yourself from one point to another. So these were some of the issues that he raised, of course, which led to the Senate President calling for the setup of an ad hoc committee to wholesomely investigate not just the Kano-Kaduna line in this case, but Nigeria's rail infrastructure as a whole to address many of these issues: infrastructure details, insecurity, poor service delivery, among many other issues, of course, that were brought forward by the lawmaker. Please.
Right. So, Sagir, since the Senate President has mentioned that funding is not the main problem, did he also say how long this committee have to investigate and come back with a plan on how to fix this problem?
Well, the ad hoc committee has been set up. So at this point, the expectation is that work would commence in earnest. Usually, they are given between 4 weeks to 6 weeks to carry out this investigation. And of course, when there is need for an extension of time, that will be done. So for right now, I would say that our eyes are on the lookout, our ears are on the ground. We'll definitely be monitoring this development. However long it will take, what Nigerians are expecting right now is for this investigation to be done. If there is need for sanctions to be met out, those sanctions should be met out. But most importantly, services have to improve. The quality of these services have to get better. The issue of insecurity, particularly with regards to transportation of goods and services, no longer has to be an issue. Else, of course, this content will continue to be raised, and of course, the common man on the street will continue to bear the consequences of this fraud. So, like I mentioned, eyes are on the lookout to see whatever it will take and whatever shape and form this will take, and then we'll be bringing, of course, all of these details for Nigerians to see.